Good afternoon. My name is Montana Squires, and the purpose of the speech is to inform you of the events of terror that took place in 1990. By a show of hands, who has watched a horror movie? Now, what would you say if I told you one of the most popular horror films in the 90s was influenced by a string of killings here in the United States? Scream became extremely popular with its depiction of a serial killer who stalked his victims and gruesomely ended their lives. All of which were aspects used in a series of deaths in Gainesville, Florida in 1990. Daniel Rawling, also known as Danny, was the man behind the mask and the person dubbed the Gainesville Ripper. His childhood and grisly tactics helped shape a movie that would be enjoyed by generations of horror fanatics. Danny was born on May 26, 1954 in Shreveport, Louisiana. At an early age, he was introduced to violence and verbal abuse. It was said Rawling's father, police officer James Rawling, was never really happy about having kids, and he let them know that all the time. In a video recording with Danny's mother, Claudia Rawling, on May 8, 1994, when asked how often the boys received a whipping, she stated, "If it was a verbal whipping, it was every day. Physical, about twice a week. But Danny received the brunt end of it." That sadly was only the beginning. As the years went on, the abuse only escalated, such as holding the boys at gunpoint on multiple occasions. After a year, he decided to drop out of school at 17. He joined the military. While he was in, he ended up being discharged for extensive drug use. He eventually moved back in Shreveport to live with his grandfather, where he met his wife and they had a child. However, he continuously lost a stream of jobs. And the frustration with his failure led him to start threatening his family, going as far as threatening to kill them. His wife of 4 years and daughter eventually packed up and left. Thus, his reign of terror began. At first, Daniel Rawling got his taste of what felt like power by committing small robberies throughout the South. As the thirst grew, so did his acts of violence. He began stalking his neighbor, Julie Grissom, by peeping through her window at night. This led to him breaking into her home and murdering Julie, her father, and her young nephew. Later, Julie and her father were found with multiple stab wounds in the back. A few days after, Danny got into an argument with his father that ended in James being shot twice. Because of this, Danny fled to Florida and took the name Michael Kennedy Jr. He eventually set up a tent in a wooded area in Gainesville, Florida, where Sonia Larson and Christina Powell lived nearby. He followed the two freshmen back to their apartment, duct taped their mouths, mutilated their bodies, and posed them in sexually suggestive positions. Just 8 hours after, he had his sights set on Krista Hoyt. Much in the same fashion, Rawlings broke into her home, continuously stabbed Krista in the back, violated her, and then removed her head. In a later testimony from Bobby Lewis, an inmate at the state prison who became the voice for Danny, he stated, "Danny was making a statement, trying to be the most famous and most remembered serial killer." Danny was able to go unnoticed for 10 days until he was apprehended for trying to rob a convenience store. But just before that, he got his last two victims, Tracy Paulies and Manuel Taboda. They ended up getting a tip while he was in custody, and that tip led the police to reevaluate the findings they found in his tent that was hidden deep in the woods. In those findings, they found fibers, a screwdriver, and a cassette tape with Rawlings' voice on it. With these confirmations, there was no denying the Gainesville Ripper was finally caught. During his court trial, Danny said to the jury, "There are some things you can't run away from, and this is one of those." Soon after, he was found guilty and sentenced to death. To conclude, on October 25th, 2006, Daniel died via lethal injection. Although the movie Scream does not depict the killer's childhood, it also does not depict how seriously gruesome these murders were. 34 years later, the people of Gainesville have moved on, but the memory of what has occurred will never easily be forgotten. Thank you for your time.